Hello, my name is Marta Barrio Valencia. I was born in Barranquilla, Colombia. I was a unique child and the spoiled girl of my parents. As a child, I had some walking troubles. I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy, and at the age of 10, I couldn't walk anymore. However, this wasn't a limitation to get ahead in life. I studied at the German School of Barranquilla. At that time, my mother carried me to school because I still didn't use the wheelchair. She gave me an example of what a mother can do to raise a child. Then I studied laws at the Universidad del Norte, where no one believed that a handicapped person could study a degree at this university. And the entity was full of architectural barriers for the handicapped people like me. At that time, no one thought I could be a lawyer. The university directors did not support me to facilitate access to classes. However, the students of all the faculties carried me all day to go up and down stairs. I finally graduated as a lawyer in 1994, and I was the first student in a wheelchair to finish a university degree in this entity. In 1993, I began to work in the Barranquilla Mayor's office, and in 1996, I began to work in the Gobernación del Atlántico until now. There, I work in the Internal Disciplinary Control Office, and now I'm working at the Women's Office. Last year was very difficult for everybody, and many changes came to our lives. Of course, it wasn't the exception for me. I had to deal with many obstacles, as learning about work at home without my boss and workmates by me, and I had to learn how to use new technological tools. I lost my mom, some family members, and some friends. I lost my mom, some family members, and some friends too. And all this experience had learned to me we have to enjoy the present time with our family and friends, because you never know what tomorrow can bring. I had taken changes in a positive way. I was able to adapt to new situations in my life, and now I'm open-minded. I'm not so attached to people, nor to material things, nor to my work, how I did it before anymore. Now I want to think more about my happiness and to do things that make me feel good. If the COVID hadn't come into our lives, I would not have changed so much my way of thinking. Last year, I decided to do new things. I had studied virtually 2 master's degrees about holistic psychology and coaching with a Spanish university. In this time of my life, I want to share my life experience with other people, and I want to be a good speaker. If it had not been for this change, I wouldn't know have this new way of thinking. No. If it had not been for this change, I would not have been able to give a conference and share my life to people I don't know. But I have learned it is an interesting experience, and you couldn't touch many lives. I have taken several courses, and I have to learn more about coaching and speaking. I have given several conferences with good reception by the people, and I want to give seminars, conferences, and lectures about the power of courage, persistence, motivation, and determination. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. Thank you very much. I would like to talk about Mahatma Gandhi, who was the primary leader of India's independence movement and also the architect of a form of non-violence civil disobedience that would influence the war. Let's turn now to early life and education. Gandhi, His real name was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and he was born on the 2nd of October in 1869. He was Porbandar was a part of the British Empire. Gandhi's father served as chief minister in Porbandar and other states in western India. His mother was a deeply religious woman who fasted regularly. Young Gandhi was a shy boy. And when he was a teenager, he decided not to smoke, not to eat meat, and still change from household servants. Gandhi was interested in becoming a doctor. His father hoped he would also become a government minister, and he went to London in 1888 as he was 18 years old. But she didn't feel very good there. He could learn about the Western culture in London. When he returned to India in 1891, he learned that his mother had died just weeks early. He struggled to gain this footing as a lawyer, but she could see that it wasn't the occupation he wants to work for the rest of her life. That's all I have to say about his early life. Gandhi followed the Hinduist religion. He lived in South Africa too. There I continued to study world religions. He wrote of his time there, and he immersed himself in sacred Hindu spiritual texts and adopted a life of simplicity, austerity, fasting, and celibacy that was free of material goods. Now let's look at Gandhi in South Africa. After struggling to find work as a lawyer in India, Gandhi obtained a 1-year contract to perform legal services in South Africa. In April 1893, he sailed for Durban in the South African state of Natal. When Gandhi arrived in South Africa, he felt the discrimination and racial segregation faced by Indian immigrants at the hands of white British and Boer authorities. Let me tell now about non-violent civil disobedience. The same year, on June 7th, during a train trip to Pretoria, South Africa, when a white man objected to Gandhi's presence in the first-class railway compartment, although he had a ticket. Refusing to move to the back of the train, Gandhi was forcibly removed and thrown off the train at the station in Pietermaritzburg. Gandhi's act of civil disobedience awoke in him a determination to devote himself to fighting the deep disease of color prejudices. From that night forward, this man, Gandhi, would grow into a very big force for civil rights. Gandhi decided to return to India at the end of the same year. In 1897, Gandhi returned to South Africa with his wife and his children. The fundamental components of the Gandhian conception of nonviolence could be summarized in four elements: Satya, Ahimsa, Sarvojadaya, and Satyagraha. Satya and Ahimsa, which Gandhi frequently translates with the English terms truth and nonviolence, are the two fundamental components. Satyagraha, truth force, and Sarvodaya, the welfare of all, are the relation in action and respectively social political institutions of truth and nonviolence. Under pressure, the South African government accepted a compromise negotiation by Gandhi and the General Jan Christian Smuts that included recognition of Indian marriages and the abolition of a poll tax for Indians. Now I'm going to tell you about the return of Gandhi to the India. When Gandhi sailed from South Africa in 1914 to return home, he wrote, "The saint has left our shores. I sincerely hope forever." At the outbreak of World War I, Gandhi spent several months in London.